Well, hello, folks, and welcome to the Geer Melhorn Fishing Podcast. Hope you're having a good day, whatever day it is that you happen to be listening to the show. Today, I've got Captain Christian Moore. He is a charter captain up on the James River in eastern Virginia, home to some massive catfish. Today's video is going to be an excerpt from a longer video with him that I shot at the Catfish conference. In the longer form video, I'm going to post it up to. He gets into some fishing, and then we get into what this video is about, and that is the, I guess for lack of a better term, the catfish political situation that's going on in Eastern Virginia. Basically, there are a lot of people at the state level, government level, that want to eradicate the blue catfish. And there's a lot of stuff's been going on politically to try to make that happen and to try to stop it. Obviously, Captain Moore makes his living up there. He's a full-time charter captain along with some other people. And he makes his living on those waters fishing for blue catfish. It's a complicated deal. I've talked about it a little bit before, and we'll talk about it again. Because the bottom line is that we do need the support of the catfish anglers out there to try to reach some kind of compromise. There's a lot of stakeholders in this. We're going to talk about that some in this podcast. And, it's not a blind, just we're only seeing the catfish side, because there is more to this. And, in all fairness, the blue catfish are not native there. We'll talk about that some. So, enjoy the podcast. It's informational. It's educational. There's going to be some links down in the description where you can reach out to Captain Moore. One, if you're looking for a charter captain up on the James River, great one to go with. But also just some stuff politically that you may be able to do to help, or to at least follow it at some point when there maybe is a call to action to get something to happen. So, and I'll put up the longer video too that has more of the fishing stuff in it about fishing on the James River, a place I've never been to. We joke about that at the end of this video, so you get to see that. But enjoy it. Give me your feedback in the comment section. I love hearing from you guys, and a lot of times there's a lot of ideas that come from what I get from you guys in these deals. So appreciate it. Enjoy it. So you got all these catfish up there. They're starting to eat all kinds of crap. Everybody's eating everybody. Mm-hmm. And there's some stuff getting eaten that people don't want to get eaten, and that's some of the saltwater stuff. The worlds collide. And people are understandably...
So they say.
That's what I was getting to. Yep. What is the research on that? Because I know there was stuff done in North Carolina many years ago trying to show a correlation between the decline of blue crabs and red-breast sunfish and flathead catfish. And they found out that, they had an impact, but maybe not as big an impact as they thought. What have they found out up there?
So here is my rationale in terms of diet studies. The diet studies, for example, that are being used for this most recent legislative change in Virginia are not from the rivers. They're from out in the Chesapeake, around the mouth of the rivers. So that's why I'm really biased to these bill changes, because they're using data from another. It's pretty much a different system. You're down at the mouth of the river in the Chesapeake, and they're trying to make it, relinquish the krill limits up in the river systems. It makes no sense, Dieter. You kind of following what I'm saying? Why are you going to use a research datum to change waters that are 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 miles from where you're researching?
Well, originally, too, to that point, weren't they including Kerr, Bugs Island, and a bunch of this stuff?
So we'll get into that in a second, but the way they have tried.
And just to clarify for everybody who doesn't understand this geographically, while those lakes are inside of Virginia, or Kerr is most of it, it actually empties into waters in North Carolina.
That's right.
So it wouldn't really be like it's emptying into the Chesapeake Bay, which is in Virginia.
Completely totally different water system.
with the bill, first let's we kind of skip to the bill.
Yep.
Tell everybody about the bill, how it started,
Sure.
what initially, just so everybody's got the background on that.
So initially, back in the first week of January, they introduced House Bill 1907. 1907 stated that Virginia legislation is going to request DWR to change the creel limits on blue catfish in the state of Virginia from one fish. Currently, you're not allowed to keep more than one fish over 32 inches per day per angler. They are trying to change that wording to you can keep as many as you want over 32 inches. In the James River, the Rappahannock River, the York River and its tributaries, as well as Kerr Lake and Lake Gaston. So that bill stayed like that for about a week. And it started getting a lot of public comment. We're like, hey, guys, you know, what I'm really appreciative of, and I hope every angler that watches this, for those of you who commented on that bill, thank you for your professionalism. You guys did an awesome job. I read every single one of those comments, and I'm appreciative of those who did comment. You did a tremendous job.
The fact that you were able to find it down at the bottom of the list where they had it buried, you had to scroll to. I commend you for digging it up.
Gosh, yeah. Man, that you want to talk about something that is antiquated and hard to navigate is the House of Delegates, their website. But anyway, so skip forward to a week. They see this thing building traction, and I think they're like, oh, we've got some people interested in this. So 1907 gets tabled. They remove it, and they come up with this new bill, and I don't remember the number on it, but it is a angler incentivized program to where they're saying you don't have to have a fishing license to fish for blue catfish in the state of Virginia. We're going to issue you what's called a digital license, and you can just apply for it online. It's free. And there's going to be some sort of incentive package built into this. We have not got any details on that, but it's basically type kind of thing where
all you got to do is say you're fishing for blue catfish and
well,
you fish for free.
Well, I think you as an angler, I think from what my understanding, they were going to leave it up to DWR, and DWR was going to have to come up with a system to where whoever catches the biggest fish gets some sort of prize. Whoever catches the most weight in a year and tags it and turns it in or whatever. They haven't written all that. And
okay. I was going to say they had a catch and kill mandate in place.
That bill, I think, has been tabled as well. I haven't heard much else about that one. I think they just used that as kind of like a distract to take our minds off of the creel limit.
Mm-hmm.
A few days later, we've got the current bill, 2782. It comes back out, and at this time, it doesn't have the lakes on it, and they have put boundaries on the James River. They put a lower boundary at Hog Island going across the College Creek. So that is what's known as the saltwater line. So anything above the saltwater line, that creel limit did not apply. So up there where a lot of us like to trophy fish, that's that area. We were still disappointed with it because, the Rappahannock was still on it, the York, but we're like, okay, they're at least letting us leaving our trophy area alone. I think it was just something to try to distract us. So I think another week goes by, they remove the boundary, and then it's all the rivers, and at this point it's went through the delegates, and then it went through the House, and then last week it went through the Senate. I think it went a 70-30 vote last week through the Senate. So we had 30 people that were opposed it in up there in the Senate. So there are people that they're not totally against catfish in Virginia. But now it's moved on toward the last legislation process is for Glenn Youngkin to sign it, and that will either be this week or next week.
Okay.
And by the way, they put the lakes back on it, which
I had heard
no one understand. Like, it boggles my mind.
Because
those, like you commented earlier, they turn into the Roanoke River, and then they eventually, I believe, dump into the Albemarle Sound. What does that have to do with the Chesapeake Bay?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. That even under trying to go with their logic of what they're trying to do, that doesn't make any sense. It seems like, hey, at least have
sense to protect the home of the biggest catfish in the country,
Right.
which is, Kerr Lake. You think just the economic impact of having that on that lake is good for that area.
Well, this is the figure I heard. The state of Virginia alone generates about $600 million in recreational fishing. This is all species.
Right. Is that saltwater too, or just
saltwater too?
Okay.
The whole state. But catfish is supposedly like 30% of it. That's $180 million in revenue.
Yeah.
So one, you got that's not that boggles my mind. And two, back to the lakes, it's almost like it's a spiteful thing. Like, why do it? We circle back around to that. And the delegate that
politicians don't like to lose.
Right. But the delegate who proposed the bill, every time she talks about it, she leads into it and says, my family likes to fish. We fish the Chesapeake. We have been unable to catch various species, like I think she named off red drum or croaker, and she said the catfish are eating them all. It's just not. It doesn't add up.
It's just one of those blanket statements. That,
all the scholarly studies that myself and a friend of mine have researched and put all this stuff together do not suggest what they are stating. And it makes no sense to remove the trophy side of the, relinquish the 32-inch law, because we looked at population studies from the last 10 years, and the most current one states, and this is speaking for the James River and the Chickahominy River system, 1.7% of the biomass is over 32 inches. We're not talking about trophy fish, just that 32-inch mark. So then you try to equate how many trophy fish are actually, we're talking a fraction of a percent of trophy fish.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense. There's no. I have friends who are commercial fishermen. There's no market for these fish. They're telling me that they're kind of cut off as the 30-pound mark. Like, there's nowhere really to take the fish that are over that 30-pound mark that want them.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we're all kind of just scratching our heads, like, what are they going to do with all these big fish that they harvest?
Exactly. So talk about I know there were some incentive programs to try to build a processing plant and all that, because they want people to fish for the blue catfish commercially, ideally.
You surely do. And it is, to an extent, these river systems in Virginia have a sustainable resource for commercial and recreational fishing. It just has to be managed right. And a good friend of mine, Dean Irwin, he'll tell you he's lived in that area since he was 13 years old. He's 61 years old. He'll tell you he's seen them ruin pretty much every fishery because they're more worried about the revenue that it generates than they are the recreational portion of it, or just the species itself.
Now, obviously, this all gets started because somebody blames some decline in their fish, whether it be blue crab, striper, whatever, on something else eating it, or too many people. That's usually where all these things come about.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any chance that some of these declines are our own fault as humans, whether it be possibly overfishing, possibly, as I always use the abbreviation, TMP, too many people along the watershed itself dumping fertilizer, chemicals, stuff into the water that affects the estuary itself as far as spawning, or like's happened, theorized with the tarpon population in Florida. You're killing the bait, you're killing the Menhaden, you're killing the mullet, and the mullet or there's not a good water quality for them. Not so much you kill them, but they're going somewhere else. Are we overfishing the Menhaden? Is this something bigger than just the evil blue catfish eating everything?
Great question. That's a great question.
It's a long question.
And I've got a multi-part answer. And I've actually wanted to do this in one of the finfish committees that I attend, and I'm almost thinking about the next one I go to doing this. I want to walk in there with a fishing rod and say, this is what I use to catch fish. I can catch one fish at a time on this device. I may catch on an average of anywhere from, on a guide trip, call it 10 to 20, 25 fish. A commercial fisherman who is using a hoop net, a catfish pot, any type of pound net, or they're catching thousands of pounds in one haul. How can I, with this device, even if I have thousands of my friends who like to use this device, be changing a population of a species or impacting it like they can? Maybe we can, I don't know, but that's one analogy. But you brought up the Menhaden. I think a lot of what's going on with the catfish in Virginia has something to do with the menhaden fishery about to go away. I don't know if you saw this or have heard about it, but there's an executive order right now headed to Trump's office that a politician in Maryland has come up with that is supposed to remove any seine fishing in the Chesapeake Bay for menhaden, which the companies who are out of Canada coming down doing this, it would push them out. I don't know what type of revenue stream has been coming into the state of Virginia for that, but that is one of my beliefs that potentially this big uproar in the catfish thing could be VA backpedaling. We're about to be losing a big stream of revenue. We need to make up with it somehow, some way, and they're using the catfish for it.
How much money does Virginia actually make off? I mean, it seems like if you're netting menhaden, which I assume they use for fish oil,
you can't find any data on it. No one knows.
It seems like that money would be going somewhere else, like to
Right.
the corporate headquarters in Canada or wherever the heck it is.
I have no idea. It's very, very hush hush, but I know it's a lot of people don't like it, and I've heard charter captains in the Chesapeake for years. They have always said that's what's wrong with the fishery. That's why you have so many declining populations in the bay, which in my mind as an angler, someone who spends over 50% of his life outdoors on the water, if you're taking a base level food source that everything eats, and we're not just talking about fish, hell, osprey, birds, all sorts of things eat this. If you're removing that in mass quantities, that's going to be more effective than a blue catfish coming out there during peak freshwater times, which is a very short time during the year, like the wet season.
Yeah.
And that's just my personal take on it. I'm that's just my gut feeling,
What's the compromise here? Because as we've said before, we're not going to magically make every blue catfish disappear. They're here to stay.
Yep.
That's
they'll never get them all.
Yeah.
There's no way.
There seems like there's got to be, and to that point, let's say you start taking out, you talk about the biomass in there that are blue catfish. You start removing all these small fish. Well, that means there's more to eat for the bigger ones. Are you going to inadvertently increase the size of the big catfish?
Right. I honestly think, they have to let DWR do their job and do population studies and growth studies and let them. That's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up. I don't understand about Virginia. We have two entities that are controlling this. You have VMRC and you have Virginia Wildlife, and supposedly Virginia.
And what is VMRC?
Virginia Marine Resource Commission.
Okay, so it's kind of like North Carolina. You got the division of, marine fisheries that kind of handles saltwater coastal stuff, and then you got the inland fisheries, and then even those heads start to bump on some of that stuff.
Right, because the tidal rivers, the upper reaches of it are supposed to be Virginia Wildlife, and then as you get towards the bay and the Chesapeake area, it's VMRC. They talk two different ways about the fish. And it's very, like, working with a biologist that I've spoke with over the years. She admits that there's an overabundance of small fish, and she will tell you that the decline of the trophy fishery is because the overabundance of small fish.
Now, which fish is eating the blue crabs? The big fish or the little fish?
Depends on the size of the crab.
Okay.
But
do they think they're eating the actual juvenile crabs? Or?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and they do.
And I knew nothing about crabs, except they do make good shark bait, and they make good bait for redfish.
Here's the thing. Do catfish eat crabs? Yes. But it's when they cross paths in seasonal times. It's not a year-round food source. And I haven't seen anything to where a crab fisherman wasn't making his quotas, what have you. So it's not the shortage of crab while they're doing it. We can't figure out why they're trying to get rid of the catfish. We really can't. Do they eat crab? Yes, but have they like obliterated the crabbing up on the Chesapeake? No.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still. Dean was telling me the other day, I didn't know this. When they're crab fishing, they keep the females that have eggs on them. Why would you do that?
Yeah, I think it might have been Luke McFadden on his channel. I thought I seen him throwing some back like that or something, that he was actually. I didn't even know that.
And maybe some of the more, well, Luke, I mean, he's big in the public eye, so he's going to do stuff right. I love watching his content. So maybe a lot of the captains do. Yeah. But some of them don't, I hear.
That's interesting. Is there a compromise, or if all this stuff gets passed, it's almost a giant experiment to see?
Yeah, that we've went way past compromise. If they pass this bill, there is no compromise.
You're just going to see what happens.
Like if they had left the lakes off, if they would have gave us some sort of boundaries. And another problem, something else we're fighting, is they're trying to issue more shock boat permits. And I've done research on that, Dieter. Several states have tried it, Texas being one of them.
Does anybody want to do it? Actually?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if there were people actually, if they actually had a market for the fish.
There's currently 3 shock boat permits in Virginia working the tidal rivers. The last meeting we went to at VMRC, they were trying to raise it to 10 permits. We got it tabled back to 6, and we're supposed to speak on it again the 23rd of this month. But something else they're trying to change is the creel limit for the commercial harvest. And one of the guys in the meeting, who continuously would try to bait me while I'm up there speaking publicly, he eventually said, well, it don't matter. House Bill 2782 is fixing to pass, and we can do whatever we want. And then one of the members of the board had to catch him and say, if it passes, it's a lot of spitefulness over catfish. Yeah. I don't understand where it stems from.
Yeah, that's interesting. There may be something more deeply seated than that. So
I definitely get like my gut feeling tells me there's way more to this than us as recreational anglers know.
Interesting.
We just want our fish. We don't want any money. We don't want any kickback. We just want to be able to catch the fish. We want our children's children to be able to catch the fish. We're not trying to make money, and I think it's the greed and the money that's causing this somewhere. I hadn't figured it out, but I intend to.
Well, to that point, and this brings up something I wanted to get into a little bit, is basically what I call the catfishing brand. And I use that, marketing, not marketing, but product term, business term. You have, Catch the Fever. They're a brand, And there's a saying that advertising is what you tell a client about your product, and brand is what a client tells you about your product. It's almost something you can try to create, but it's more something that is perceived. So,
sure.
To that point, the catfishing brand, how do you think it's perceived in the fishing community and in the bigger picture, the eyes of that lady who I got this Karen imprint in my head when you said that of, the general public?
Well, being here at the Catfish Conference today, you would think it was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Oh, it's
Everybody here loves catfish.
Yeah, it's like coming to church and going, do you like Jesus or not?
I think it's more of a logistics thing. You've got the Mississippi River and its river basins and, all of its confluences. I think along that chain of river system, it's an appreciated species. It's native to there. I think, it has a big, people are just used to it. I think the areas that they're not liked is where they've been stocked on a large level. Just my personal opinion. You have generations and generations of fishermen, whether it's recreational or commercial, their fathers and their families didn't fish for them, and then all of a sudden they're here, so it's a new thing, and people don't like change. So that's my rationale behind it. I think in areas where the catfish have always been, they're appreciated. They're looked at as more of a game fish. And then areas like Virginia where they've been stocked, don't everybody love them. There's a lot of people that do love them, but not everybody.
That's interesting. I've never really thought about that, but that's very true. They do seem to be a little more coveted in those places. Yeah, because the blue catfish, as I've said before, a lot of people don't realize blue catfish, flathead catfish, pretty much east of the Appalachian Mountains are non-native.
That's it.
Most of them were introduced by some wildlife agency at some point.
It's your base level culturalistic thing, man.
Yeah.
It's been in the culture in those Mississippi areas and their river basins, and it's just part of life there longer. And us as humans, I feel like we just have a receptor to accept the norm and what's been there forever, as versus to change.
Oh yeah, there's a lot tied to that psychologically. So you and I will have to do a podcast on the psychology of fishing and stuff. It's a whole nother deep dive that I want to get into. Addiction, the addiction part of fishing. I need a psychiatrist for that. So if anybody's watching, a psychiatrist wants to come on and talk about this, DM me. I'd love to talk about it.
For sure. It is. Yeah, it's a drug.
So we'll close with your guide business. Somebody's always asking me about somebody down there. I've sent a few down to you. How do they get a hold of you? When's a good time? How far out in advance do you book? Give us the rundown on that real quick.
So I tell people all the time, if you're looking to catch a trophy fish, that call it end of August all the way through the fall, winter, early spring, that's when we catch the big fish. In the month of, May, midway through, we can still catch some pretty good fish at the beginning of May, but, we're getting into the spawn. We can still do eater trips, still catch a lot of fish. We do not offer any trophy trips in the month of June. When we come back in July, we start up our night trips for the year. We'll do night trips for 4 to 6 weeks, and then we'll switch back over to days in August. Best way to get in touch with me is my phone number, 336-988-1394. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, as well as TikTok. And then if you want to go book today, go to realcountrygs.com and just go to the menu, click on book now, and it'll show you our availability.
I'll put you a link down in the description for that at some point. And I've been saying this for a long time. We're going to get on the boat. You're going to go wherever you think you can catch catfish, and you're putting out whatever you want on your side.
And you're bringing chicken. We need to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Thank you, buddy.
Absolutely. Enjoyed it.
Well, there you go, folks. Hopefully that gives you some insight, some backstory on what's going on up there, and just some stuff to keep you aware of, these type of changes. For people in other parts of the country where the blue catfish is native, you're never going to face this. But for those of us on the East Coast where the blue catfish is not native and has showed up in the past 30, 40, 50 years, that's one of the things that is, coming to the forefront in some areas. In some places, they're just accepted and embraced and, quite honestly, have just assimilated into the fishing culture, the fisheries, and they're just accepted as just residents. So we'll see what happens up in Virginia. I'd love to hear your feedback, comments, ideas, and suggestions. These guys have thought of a lot of stuff, but there may be some things they haven't thought of. So throw your ideas out there, drop them in the comments, and we'll catch you guys out on the water.